The affirmation we're using is, I expect and accept only good. Let's say that 3 times. I expect and accept only good. I expect and accept only good. I expect and accept only good. And the question is, one that we have looked at in different ways, what do I expect? What do I expect? A lot of people don't expect anything. They believe that life is just going to happen, and whatever happens is there without any kind of control that they have. What's the affirmation? I expect and accept only good. This time, we've talked about this before, about expecting good, but expecting good is only the first part of it. And the reality that in New Thought, as in other forms of Christianity and other faith traditions as well, the reality is to understand what's going on inside us, not so much what's going on outside of us. Because what is going on inside us allows us to deal with the circumstances and situations outside of us. So if we expect good, that's one side of it, but do we accept good? And therein lies a problem. Most of us are not good at accepting. We are good at giving. We are not good at accepting. And if you think about it, somebody gives you something, and how do we often respond? Oh, you shouldn't have done it. You know something? You give me something, I'll say, thank you very much. You know, so somebody reaches for the check at the table, I just push it that way. You know, because if you accept, and it's a gift freely given, and there are so many gifts that are freely given to us, and we fail to accept them. In your life and in my life, we know from Scripture, and we know from theology, from what theology we have in New Thought, which is principle-based. The principle of life is that God created all that is, and created it in us in His likeness and image. He said all that He created was what? Good. And therefore, anything that we see, anything that we experience, anything that takes place that is not good is either an illusion or it is something that we have perverted or changed that ought to be good. If you get fired, what should you do? Say it. I expect and accept only good. So I got fired. So what happened? You get fired? What happens? We talked about this before. The New Thought response to getting fired is, thank you very much. I've worked here for a month or 5 years or 2 years. You were great to me. It was a wonderful place. You put food on my table, but now you don't need me anymore. Now that's a hard thing to say, or there's no place for me, or I've done something. And so now thank you very much, and you go forth expecting and what? Willing to accept good. Because if you're not willing to expect it and accept it, it's not coming. Because our minds operate to attract that which we what? Send forth. And if we can send forth the expectation and the acceptance of good, then nothing but good can come. Paul said, all things do what? Work together for good. What does that mean? That means a diagnosis. That means a loss of job. That means when you lose your house. That means when a relationship ends. That means in the most burdensome trials of life, we can expect and accept good. The foundation of this tradition is to see beyond appearances. And if you cannot see beyond appearances, you're going to believe what you see with your eyes and hear with your ears, and you're going to respond accordingly, and you will never accept good, and you will seldom expect it. Because in the face of challenge, you will see the challenge, and you'll see the defeat. And when you see that, you will be defeated. And you will go down that road. Because thoughts in mind create after their kind. This is a simple faith. This is a practical faith. This is a faith that was demonstrated clearly by Him and by others who taught us that it is not in doctrines and creeds, it is not in memorizing scriptures, it is not any of that. It's all fine if you do that. But is your life practically lived in a positive and affirmative way? Do you expect and accept only good, no matter what? And are you willing to do that and do the work? And when we were doing counseling and therapy, one of the things we say is, you got to do the work. And most people are not willing to do the work. The work means you got to look at yourself, you got to look at your life, and you've got to be willing to change. And in reality, New Thought is not about changing. It is about coming into alignment with the truth of who and what you are, just like psychotherapy is. It is coming into the truth of your own empowerment and strength despite what happens in your life. It doesn't matter what happened in your life. And you can rehash that, you go over it and over and over again, but fundamentally you come back to the fact, what is happening in me? What is happening in me? Are we people who expect and accept only good in every circumstance, situation? I will tell you that if you come to this affirmation and affirm it and go beyond affirming it, but make it a part and parcel of the way that you live, nothing will touch you. And every single thing that comes into your life will result in good. Will you die? Yes, you will. Will you have a problem now and then? Yes, you will. Will your heart be broken? Oh, yeah. Will you run out of money? Probably so. Will all those things happen? But you know what happens? Every time you do, you're going to come out of it. You're going to come out of it. I can tell you lots of stories of people in this movement, in this teaching, that have understood it fully and completely, that have been devastated. The happiest time that I have is Easter, and we'll celebrate that in a little bit. Easter is a great thing because Holy Week is this exposition in 7 days of Jesus Christ showing us what his whole teaching was about. And his whole teaching, if we jump over Christmas a little bit and look at Easter, in Holy Week, what happened? He came into Jerusalem triumphantly, and in the triumph, within a few days, things changed. His friends turned against him. Politically, he had done a good job of pulling it off so that he didn't get arrested and get in trouble. He got arrested. He got tried. He was rejected by his followers. He got judged. He was publicly disgraced. He got crucified and he died. In the midst of that process, what do we see Jesus doing? He was, whether or not we know it, if you read the story and look at it, he was expecting and accepting only good. And so he went through it placidly with the expectation that nothing could come out of this but good. Nothing. And that reality is yours and mine to claim if we understand the teaching. And so these questions, the question this week is, what do I expect? And if you expect good, which most of us do not, myself included, I have to come back and remind myself of this teaching. I have to remind myself when I face difficulty, every one of us, when we face difficulty, we begin to go down a road of thought, and we have to stop and say, what am I doing and why am I doing it? And is it consistent with the teaching? And if it is not, we need to stop and look at our lives, our thoughts, our emotions, and say, do I want to go that way or do I want to go the right way? And the right way means that no matter what happens, we can expect and accept good. The beginning point is to expect it, but the most important part is to accept it, because many of us expect it, and we go on and on in expectation, and it never becomes manifest. And so that manifestation has to be the willingness to accept it. And so everything that you and I experience that we think is so devastating, that's so damaging, and so hurtful, can be overcome by just understanding and aligning ourselves, as Ernest Holmes so eloquently said in Religious Science, with the divine mind. If we can connect with the divine mind, then everything is good and only good, and we can expect it and accept it. The good news is that you and I can expect and accept good anytime we want to. The good news is that there is not a circumstance or situation that can take place in your life or anyone else's that cannot be solved by the simple, practical application of expectation and acceptance. But if we don't do the work, we're going to let our lives go down the road that our mind takes us. And our mind will take us there. And do you know whose fault that is? Ours. That is freedom of choice. That is the freedom that is given to us as human beings by the infinite wisdom and divine love of God. It has nothing to do with sin. It has nothing to do with judgment. It has nothing to do with any of that. It has to do with whether or not we are willing to see the truth and to allow it to come forth. And everything that you experience in your life is experienced for the purpose of bringing forth the truth in your life. Why is it that we go, so often we hear people, why do I go through the same problems? Why do I find the same relationship? Why does this repeat itself over and over again? It repeats itself because we haven't learned the lesson. And you know what? You learn the lesson, and away it goes. Just like the mathematician, that has a terrible problem that he or she has to solve, and they just thrive on getting that answer. You work and work and work, get the answer, and then what do? Give me another problem. So, and it wouldn't be great in our lives if we go out and say, I've solved this problem. Oh, God, give me another problem. give me another one, and give me another one, until we get really good. And you're really good at solving the problems, and guess what? Life becomes so empowering and so magnificent because we're willing and able to expect, accept, and claim the good. And when we do, we understand who and what we are. Children of God, created in the likeness and image of God, with limitless potential, and that God has given to you and to me every resource we need. And all we need to do is understand it, embrace it, and allow it to come forth in our lives. But it has to be lived in our hearts and minds first. And until we get it right inside, the outside is going to continue to be a problem. Even when we get it right inside, the outside is going to be a problem. But guess what? The good news being, that outside problem, that challenge, that difficulty, that lack of money, that in the relationship, that illness, all of that will fade away into the truth. And the truth allows us to be empowered for great good. So this week, when you're looking at this question, ask yourself, do I need to get better at accepting good when it's offered to me? Because if you don't accept good when it's offered to you, that's the fundamental part of the problem. But if you're going to allow new thought, practical Christianity and spirituality as taught by Jesus Christ to come forth in your life, you have to be able to expect and accept only good in the face of everything. So this week, go out and look for a problem. And you don't have to really look for them. They'll come. Don't worry. And they'll come and solve them. And as you solve them, then you'll get better and better at it. And you have less and less of those problems. And you know what? Then you'll get really good at it. And then you'll be able to tell people about it. And that's what New Thought's all about. It's about sharing that reality and the truth. Not through proselytizing or evangelization, but by simply demonstrating our lives so that people can see. We are demonstrators of the faith. And if we demonstrate the faith, that really shows other people that it works. And that's what Jesus Christ did. He showed everyone what he could do. Not what he could do, but what the Father would do through him, and what true understanding of spirituality was all about. But it's true of all religions and every people everywhere. The divine Spirit is trying desperately to help us understand how strong and powerful and magnificent we are, and how we are able to deal with circumstances. Right? So go out there and get a problem. And if you don't have one, I'll pray hard that you get one this week. All right?